The 53-man roster is set, and now joining me today to talk the current Vikings roster is Vikings game day analyst Ron Johnson. Ron, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm feeling good. I got my Mario Brothers shirt on. Why? Because Mario always looks for new lives. And, of course, that's what these Vikings players are hoping to find this week.
Surprises on this 53 final cut roster?
Well, of course, I'm a receiver, so I'm going to hold off on that surprise. But my first surprise, and it's not really a surprise, two safeties. We kept talking about depth at the safety position, and they stuck with two right now with Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris. One, you're saying these guys are just so good you don't need any help. But my guess is they're going to go out and get a veteran. We all know that there's other cuts coming throughout this week, and there's all kinds of changes before we get to Sunday versus the Packers. And we know Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer have had guys kind of on their list. And so I think they're going to wait for a possible, like a ha-ha Clinton Dix, if they can get him under the cap. And he would love to play for the Vikings for the simple fact to go back against the Packers in the first game. And so that's almost like a Belichick move. If you can get that guy, he can come in and kind of give you some Packers tips early on. But that was an early surprise for me.
Heading into the draft, there were three voids at cornerback that had to be addressed. You addressed that with three draft picks: Harrison Hand, Cameron Dantzler, Jeff Gladney. Were there any shockers when you were looking at this cornerback position, seeing it finalized now?
No, not really. I mean, I think we talked about this at the draft show. We knew they had to go out and get corners. You lose, your two starters, Trey Waynes and Xavier Rhodes, and then you also lose your starting nickel. And so when you look at that, Mike Hughes was your heir apparent to come in and be the next guy. Cameron Dantzler and Jeff Gladney have kind of gone back and forth, but I think Dantzler just overall has maybe outplayed him a little bit in camp. His arm length, his ability to be a pro on the field, not hurt Adam Thielen, that's the key, knocking the ball down. So I like his arm length, his wingspan. That's kind of a true cover two type corner that can jam and get back into space. Zimmer loves him. And then I think Hand just kind of fills in that void of having a special teams DB, but a guy you can move around. They know they're four kind of going in. You also have Houghton Hill as well. I think he's going to play a lot this year and hopefully stay healthy, and that's going to be the big key for these guys. With that number, normally we've seen 10 DBs at times, even 11 because special teams, punt return, kick return. This is a year where it's kind of leaned towards the offense having more guys. And I know Mike Zimmer is not probably the happiest about that, but I definitely know he's comfortable with it because he made that move.
26 players on offense, 24 guys on defense, 3 special teams players, kicker, punter, long snapper. But you talk about a lot of those guys on the offensive side of the ball. 7 wide receivers. We ran the ball 49% of the time last year. Is this how you saw things playing out right there in the wide receiver position?
Not at all. I did have 5 locked. I had KJ Osborne up there with Sharp, BC Johnson, Adam Thielen, and Jefferson. That was my 5. 6 was kind of like, it could be BB, it could be Alexander Hollins, because they both were having pretty good camps. The Dan Chisnia, that one came out of nowhere. But I did notice, they put him on defense, and I think they were trying to find a spot for him because special teams, and I've brought this up over and over again, when it comes to the bubble, it's special teams. Special teams coaches are going to give their list of, here's my, 5 to 6 guys that I really want on this team. And then coaches are going to try to find a place for them. And Chisena clearly, won kind of the hearts over of the special teams coaches because they really wanted him on this roster, where who knows, he might go back to safety one day. Maybe that was a thought, but, played at Penn State, 6'3", 202, has a size to play special teams, can play on punt return. Definitely a surprise. BB, to me, only reason that was a surprise to me is I just assumed they were going to have more DBs, and you already had Abdullah as a returner. You also, had Hughes as a returner too, and then KJ Osborne as a returner. So BB, to me, I thought was going to be a default just casualty of numbers, and he still could be a casualty of numbers when you look at possible safeties that they're going to pick up. That's the immediate spot I could see them saying, hey, we don't really need 7 receivers. Like you said, they run the ball, and it's a big 2 tight end team. So when you look at that, Justin Jefferson, he's going to get brought on slow. I think BC Johnson out the gate is going to get a lot of the heavy start and roll stuff. And then you'll see Justin Jefferson kind of come in like Stephon Diggs his rookie year. And, as he grasps the offense more, he'll be out there more. But I think BB and Chisena could be early casualties of, hey, here's a safety we can get. If we're going to cut anywhere, we're going to cut at receiver.
Another question mark was the left guard spot. We know the Vikings have 4 out of their 5 starting returning linemen returning this offseason. But that left guard spot is between Dakota Dozier and Avion Collins. Avion Collins didn't make the roster, so it looks prime for Dakota Dozier to secure that starting left guard spot heading into week 1. Was there any surprises there? And 2, what does that mean for this offensive line?
Well, I mean, Dozier did a good job last year. I think he was pretty solid when he got opportunities to play. We've seen him in a couple preseasons, and he was, pretty good. This camp was weird this year, so we didn't really get a chance to see the offensive line. Like what coaches like to do is put different fives out there and just see which fives look the best together. You don't have that because of camp, because of what happened with COVID-19. And so when you move on and you look at Samia, you look at Elfline, you look at Bradbury, you look at all these guys that you can move around and do some things, getting rid of Brett Jones, who was technically going to be your backup center. And now you have Elfline as the backup center / guard. There's a lot of moving parts. Again, until we see them walk out Sunday against the Packers, we really don't know what this starting line is going to look like, but I trust the coaches.
A lot of moving parts. And of course, this year you can have 16 guys on the practice squad. So that plays a factor right there. Also having more guys in your stable to pull up. Of course, this year you can pull a guy up 53. You can pull a guy up to the 53-man roster 90 minutes prior to kickoff. So that's another factor right there to what guys will actually make the team and what guys will actually be traveling. But lastly, this linebacker position. Hardy Nickerson makes it over Blake Lynch, David Reese, and Jordan Fair. Was this just another factor of just experience over, a rookie, being that we are in a pandemic and he knows the game?
Yeah, I even go back to the Sharp, because a lot of people I saw on social media were talking about Tajay Sharp might not make the team. I think you go to that. You go to a guy you have game film on. You go to a guy So with Hardy Nickerson, which is funny, I mean, the name for me, being in the Big Ten, Illinois, the whole Hardy Nickerson name, I just like that name, period, anyway, because of what it stood for before him. But you look at a kid like that, 4th year out of Illinois, he knows pro football. And I think you have to go with a guy who knows pro football when you didn't have a preseason, because with the preseason, who knows what it could have looked like. And that's where you see a lot of rookies step up and take guys out that you were like, whoa, I didn't think this guy had a shot. Adam Thielen. I mean, you rewind back to Adam Thielen, undrafted out of Minnesota State Mankato. Without a preseason, Adam Thielen's a dentist right now. That's, I think, what we're lacking this year is you're not going to have a lot of those stories where you're like, oh man, I can't believe this kid made the team, because he wasn't able to put film out. Rookies were a casualty of the virus, let's be honest. But Nickerson has some good film out there. I think he fits well with the scheme of guys. When you look at Eric Kendricks, you look at Troy Dye, you want guys that can move in this defense. It's going to look a lot different this year with, Pierce out. You also have your D tackle in Linval Joseph, who's not there anymore to plug the nose. And so it's going to have a hybrid, I think, 4-3 with a stand-up DN kind of look. I mean, DJ Wanham and Ngakoue, kind of the same body types. And so I think Zimmer's going to get real tricky this year and try to, confuse people with some of his looks. And I think Nickerson just fits in and say, hey, if I make a call and he's on the field, I know he can get it done. And that's what we got out of that.
Appreciate you, Ron.
No, thank you.